After 2 games in the Olympic qualifying tournament down in Mexico, the U.S. men's national team has done what they set out to do. They won 2 games, they secured 6 points. They have solidified themselves in the next round with an opportunity to qualify for the Olympics. Now, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't exactly something that filled us with a lot of enthusiasm and confidence for the future, but they did their job. All that and more on this episode of the Yank Report. Hi, my name is Sam. Welcome into the Yank Report, the show where we talk about the U.S. men's national team, and that includes youth national teams and academies and all kinds of good stuff like that. And if you're into that stuff, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps a lot of people find the channel, and it would make me very happy inside if you care about that. So the U.S. men's national team started off its Olympic qualifying campaign against Costa Rica, and as I said in my preview video, it was going to be a lot scarier of a game than people were anticipating. Yes, the U.S. had a lot stronger lineup on paper than Costa Rica, but of course Costa Rica is, a lot of their players play on the same team. They're all in mid-season form right now, so they just came straight out of their season into this tournament and they're ready to go. The national team, on the other hand, the U.S. men's national team Olympic qualifying team, a lot of these guys are playing in MLS, and they have not played a competitive game in 5 months. They've also never played with each other. They didn't get any warm-up games. They're also playing at elevation in Mexico, and they were playing at one of the hottest parts of the day. So things were not shaping up for a very good performance from the U.S. men's national team, and that's exactly what we saw early on. Costa Rica early on took away Jackson Ewell, which really just threw a wrench in all of our plans for whatever reason. Once they took away Jackson Ewell, our distribution just, it was non-existent. It meant that Justin Glad and Pineda had to do the bulk of the distribution, and they just look like players that haven't played matches in a long time. They looked really shaky. They didn't receive balls very well. And really, that can apply to the whole team. I mean, there wasn't a lot of players that looked sharp. One of the few guys that actually did look kind of sharp every now and then was Sam Vines, and the goal was created through Sam Vines. The U.S. worked the ball to the right. They brought it back to Sam Vines on the left. He put in a good cross, as he's apt to do, and it found somehow, some way, Jesus Herrera, who had been playing, I don't know what position he was playing at this point, but he made a very, very late run, which found him all alone in the box, and he put it away. That was the only goal the Americans scored, and it was a pretty nervous and shaky game. It had been a long time since I'd watched a game where I was really emotionally involved in the outcome, and I had forgotten what it feels like to just be terrified for 90 minutes straight. So thank you, U.S. Youth National Team Olympic qualifying, for returning that feeling. The next game was against the Dominican Republic, and I was expecting a much better team. This game was going to be played at night instead of during the day, so I thought the fitness was going to be a little bit better. The players, you know, had a little bit more time in camp to play together and, you know, hopefully learn from the Costa Rican game. And also the Dominican team was just not as good as the Costa Rican team, so we were expected to come in and dominate. Jason Kreis flipped the roster almost entirely. I think we're going to see a lot of roster rotation throughout this tournament, but there was only a few players that actually started the first game and the second game. One of the big criticisms of this group was the lack of creativity within the roster. Now, Jason Kreis had said, you know, there's players on this team that can do things that you're not expecting them to do. Johnny can play further up the field and provide some creativity. Jackson Ewell can play as an 8. He can provide some creativity, so we were excited to see, you know, what this Frankenstein of a lineup was going to do. Was he going to provide that creativity that Jason Kreis alluded to? And the answer is no, it did not. It played like 3 defensive midfielders. It played like a lot of players dropping back. Early on in the game, we saw Herrera dropping back, we saw Ewell dropping back, we saw Johnny dropping back, and we saw our 9/false 9 forward, Jesus Herrera, dropping back. There wasn't a lot of players who were looking to receive the ball and go forward. So early on, I mean, it did not look a whole lot better than the Costa Rican game. We were still struggling to really do anything. We had a ton of possession, but no end product. The only time the team looked threatening is whenever either Vines or Arajo made something happen on the wings. They were playing in some dangerous crosses, but of course we had Jesus Herrera in there in the box, who is sometimes in the box, sometimes not in the box, and he's just not one to go up and win headers anyway. So we just didn't look like we were going to be scoring many goals at all. Now, I know that Greg Berhalter and Jason Kreis are very high on Jesus Ferreira, and they love the way that he plays the game. And I'm not saying that he's not a great player. All I'm saying is that at halftime, whenever the team made the switch from Ferreira to Soto, it seemed like it kind of flipped the switch and the team just started playing better all around. Just having that 9 up there occupying the center backs and being in a position where everybody expected him to be, it allowed the team to just kind of breathe a little bit more, allowed more space to open up, and the team started to function a little bit better. At that point, we scored our first goal, and then we saw a few more changes. Sebastian Salcedo out, Jordi Mihailovic in, and Johnny Cardoso out, Hassani Datsun in. And it was Datsun, I felt, that just had the biggest impact in the game. And the reason why is because he played that position that was sort of missing when we had Cardoso and Ewell as the 8s. Hassani Datsun is a player that can receive the ball, turn, and run with it. And that penetrating pressure really just opened up everything for the national team. Now, after that, the team just kind of came alive, and they scored 3 more goals, ended up winning the game 4-0. Now, 4-0 on the score sheet looks fantastic, but that was after not scoring any goals or looking threatening at all until halftime. I think they scored the first goal in the 60th minute, so all the goals came after the 60th minute or so. So it's not exactly the firing on all cylinders, well-oiled machine that we were hoping to see coming into the tournament. That being said, the team did complete its mission in the group stage. They defeated Costa Rica, which they absolutely had to do. They defeated the Dominican Republic, which they were expected to do, and that allows them to move on to the next round, to the all-important must-win semifinal game. So after 2 games, we have seen every single field player called into camp play at least a little bit on this roster. So we've learned a lot of things. I think, first of all, we learned that David Ochoa is a fantastic keeper. But we've been hearing about the potential of David Ochoa for many years. And just seeing what he can do out on the field, seeing his gamesmanship, you know, whenever he fell down for that injury and just all the little antics that he did, and just seeing his stop-shopping ability and how big he was in the big moments of the game was fantastic to see. And I've said before on Twitter that, you know, if the only thing that comes out of this Olympic qualifying tournament is the emergence of David Ochoa, that kind of allows him to kickstart his career in MLS and then his career beyond, I mean, that is a win for the U.S. men's national team. Now, outside of David Ochoa, I think the 2 big players that everybody was hoping would perform well were Jackson Ewell and Sam Vines. Now, Sam Vines, we've seen some good and we've seen some bad. We've seen him get burned. We've seen him take some sloppy touches, but we've also seen him playing in some very good balls and being a very threatening on the attack for the national team. Jackson Ewell, it's been kind of a mixed bag. He was criticized in the Costa Rica game because once he was marked out of the game, he was marked out of the game. He just didn't provide much after that. And then in the second game, whenever he played as an 8, but he was a 6-ish 8. Wasn't he? I mean, he was pretty far back, and we didn't see him penetrate very often. It wasn't until later in the game, whenever things were really moving, that Jackson Ewell really got himself into the attack, and that's whenever he scored that first goal. And to his credit, it was a fantastic finish on that first goal. But if he's going to play 8, he's got to be more involved in the attack and getting into the box and that kind of thing, and that's just not something that we saw from him early in the game. Jesus Ferreira is another player that is involved in the senior team, and so far it's been a mixed bag from Herrera. I mean, he did score the only goal against Costa Rica, the game winner, but outside of that, he missed some big chances that could have seen the U.S. men's national team put the game away early on. And in the Dominican Republic game, there's just not a lot that you can say about his performance. I'm not saying Sebastian Soto dramatically outperformed Jesus Ferreira. I don't know who the number 1 should be going forward, the number 1, number 9, but Jesus Ferreira so far has not exactly lived up to that billing as a potential starter for the U.S. men's national team. Another exciting battle that we talked about before the tournament was going to be Herrera versus Arajo in the right back position. We saw Herrera get the first start against Costa Rica and perform okay. We saw Arajo get the start in the second game against the Dominican Republic, and Arajo did have some exciting moments. He provided some great service from the right wing. He looked like one of the more threatening parts of the attack attack early on in the game whenever it seemed like nothing was working. Now, it should be said that he was playing against the Dominican Republic team that didn't offer as big a threat as the Costa Rican team, so that should be considered. Does this mean that Arajo earns a start against Mexico? I don't know. That's up to Jason Kreis. I don't know who he sees as his number one right back right now, but in my eyes, I think Arajo is leading that. Andres Perea came on in the first game against Costa Rica and really held down that 6th spot. He got the start in the second game against the Dominican Republic, and he was a bright spot for me. He was active. He's not going to play the long balls like Jackson Ewell, but he's going to be tidy with the ball. He's going to continue circulating possession, and he's just a game player. He's ready to get into tackles. He's ready to, just make things happen all over the field, and I really like that about him. The golden boy of these first 2 games was Hassani Datsun. Datsun got the brace in the Dominican Republic game, but he was also one of the stars of the Costa Rica game. Datsun is a player in MLS that, people were not that excited that he made the roster, but since making the roster, he's really made the most of his opportunities. And last but not least, I think the player I was most excited about seeing coming into this tournament was Johnny Cardoso. Now, Cardoso had played as a 6 for the national team before. He had played a 6 with his club, Internacional in Brazil. We got to see Cardoso play further up the field against the Dominican Republic, and honestly, it was not that great a performance. He really seemed to struggle making things happen on the field. Whenever he did receive the ball, he often played it back to his center backs or maybe a lateral pass out to Julian Arajo. He rarely just made any penetrating passes, any line-breaking passes. He had a golden opportunity to score, and he hit the crossbar. He got nutmegged at one point on the left wing. It was just a lot of errors for Johnny Cardoso. Now, does this mean that Johnny Cardoso is a bad player and he'll never feature for the national team again? No. We got to keep in mind that this is a 19-year-old player, that this was really his first real competitive start for a U.S. men's national team, even though this is a youth team. I'm sure he's filled with nerves, and he's playing at elevation, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. He's trying to adapt to this new position with this new team that he doesn't have a lot of experience with. We shouldn't write off Johnny Cardoso because we've seen him perform very well in the Brazilian league. I'll just say that this performance was not the one that I was hoping for from Cardoso. I was hoping to see him being one of the better players on this team and make a case for himself for the senior team, but we haven't seen that yet so far in the tournament. So that's the first 2 games. The USA will take on Mexico in the last game of the group stage on Wednesday to complete the group before we move on to the semifinal round. Now, I'm curious to see what you guys think. I've seen a lot of takes on Twitter. I know confidence is not very high right now. I'm curious what you guys think about Jesus Herrera and how he's performed in that 9 role. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still watching and you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you around in the channel more often, and hit the like button if you liked the video, if you learned something, if you just like hearing me talk about this stuff. Hit that like button. It really helps more people find the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.